A grandma's touching tale of struggle and strength reveals a shocking family secret. Evelyn stood at the window, her heart heavy as she gazed out at her garden, a riot of color that felt both familiar and painfully distant. It had been 6 months since her beloved Harold passed away, leaving her with echoes of laughter in the empty rooms of their house in Maplewood. Every morning, she could still hear his gentle humming, the way he'd laugh as the sun warmed their little patch of earth. But now, the silence pressed down on her like a thick fog. One day, as she tended to the roses, a splash of laughter broke the stillness. It was Lily, the bubbly girl next door, skipping toward her like she belonged in a fairy tale. "Can I help?" she chirped, her eyes sparkling with mischief. A reluctant smile crept onto Evelyn's lips as she watched Lily kneel beside her, plucking weeds with the enthusiasm of a treasure hunter. Their conversations flowed like a meandering river. Evelyn found herself sharing stories about her youth, about dancing in the moonlight with Harold. Lily listened, enraptured, her innocence a balm for Evelyn's aching heart. With every whispered tale, the weight of her loneliness lightened a bit more. But deep inside, shadows crept. Last week, as she rummaged through the attic, searching for an old scarf, her fingers brushed against something cold and hard. A trunk. Curious, she pried it open to reveal a treasure trove of letters and faded photographs, intimate pieces from a life she'd tucked away. The words danced on the paper, memories of a love lost and betrayal that stung like a cruel ghost. Her heart raced as she pieced together fragments of a family scandal that had been buried deep. Just then, the sound of a knock echoed through her thoughts. Who could it be? As she opened the door, her breath hitched. There stood a figure from her past, a man whose face was both familiar and foreign. The air thickened with unspoken tensions, a knot tightening in her chest. Why was he here? Evelyn felt the room spin. Days turned into restless nights as she wrestled with her memories, the letters' shadows whispering tales of heartache and regret. Lily, with her innocent laughter, noticed the change. "You seem sad today," she said, her voice soft, like a feather landing on the ground. Evelyn hesitated, torn. Could she share these secrets with Lily? Gazing into the past, Evelyn realized the stakes. The resurfacing figure might threaten everything she'd built, bringing back the pain of betrayal lurking just beneath the surface. As the evening sun dipped low, casting long shadows, Evelyn sat with Lily under the blossoming cherry tree. "There's a story that needs telling," she breathed, courage fueling her words. Would sharing this truth bring peace or open old wounds? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Evelyn took a deep breath, her heart racing as she looked at Lily beneath the cherry tree. This was the moment. A story long buried, tangled in her past, waited to escape her lips. "There's a story that needs telling," she started, her voice trembling like fragile leaves in the wind. Lily tilted her head, her curious eyes widening. "What is it?" But just as Evelyn was about to speak, a loud crash echoed from the house behind her. Startled, Both women whipped around. The front door burst open, and there he stood, the man from her past, Jason. His face held a mix of anger and desperation, like a storm ready to break. "Evelyn!" he shouted, his voice slicing through the warm air. "You need to stop this, now." Evelyn froze, the words dying on her lips. Jason, a name she hadn't uttered in years, felt like a jagged rock lodged in her throat. What did he mean? Stop what? Lily looked between them, confused, innocent as a lamb caught in a thunderstorm. "Jason?" she stammered, her small voice wavering. "Why are you here?" He didn't answer Lily. Instead, he pointed a finger at her, a look of horror in his eyes. "You can't tell her, Evelyn. She doesn't need to know the truth." The air crackled with tension. "What truth?" Evelyn's voice came out sharp. She wasn't a child anymore. Her past couldn't continue to dictate her future. He stepped closer, his chest heaving, desperation ebbing into slight menace. "You've kept this buried. The letters, the secrets. They can ruin everything." A sudden chill washed over Evelyn. In that moment, something clicked inside her, a realization that clawed at her gut. "What are you not telling me?" she asked, her hands trembling. His eyes darted to Lily, then back to Evelyn, horror flickering across his face. "Your daughter. She deserves more. You've dragged her into a web of lies." Like ice water poured over her. The air went heavy. "What did you just say?" The ground beneath her felt unstable, rippling with the enormity of his words. Lily's eyes widened even more, questions swirling in her innocent mind. "Evelyn, is that true? Is he saying—" Evelyn felt the world tilt. Memories she'd buried rushed back, whispers she'd ignored, things she couldn't bear to acknowledge. "I never had a daughter." No, it couldn't be true. Jason's expression twisted, a mix of pity and frustration. "That's where you're wrong. You're not just Evelyn anymore. You're a mother, and it's time to face the truth." The cherry blossoms rustled nervously above them, a quiet contrast to the explosive emotions swirling as Evelyn's heart raced wildly. She felt lightheaded, cold beads of sweat trickling down her spine. "Stop!" she cried, the word bursting out, clawing for control. "What truth? What happened?" With every word, a wall crumbled, and the darkness of the attic letters loomed larger. This moment felt like a razor's edge, balancing on the possibility of shattered peace and reopened wounds. Jason stepped back, eyes wide with fear, and before he could say another word, the ground trembled beneath them. A freak gust of wind picked up, sweeping branches into a dance, and the sky dimmed as thunder rolled. "Oh no! What's happening?" Lily shouted, clutching her chest, eyes darting to the darkening sky. Then, with a sudden, blinding flash of lightning, something heavy thudded down nearby, shaking the earth. They all turned to see a rusted, old trunk, identical to the one in the attic, crashing onto the ground. It split open with a loud crack, spilling out photos, letters, and what looked like a diary onto the grass. Pieces of Evelyn's hidden past laid bare in the open. Evelyn's heart sank, dread pulling at her feet. This was more than memories. It was a reckoning. As the storm raged on, so did the questions. What was in that trunk? What truth would be unleashed? Would it tie her to the daughter she never knew? Evelyn's breath came out in shaky bursts, each second stretching. She had to know, but at what cost? Evelyn stood frozen, breath caught in her throat, as the trunk's contents spilled across the grass, like autumn leaves caught in a storm. Photos fluttered in the wind, the faces of long-forgotten relatives staring back at her, with ghostly eyes. Every letter felt like a weight pressed against her chest, heavy and suffocating. What hadn't she known? Jason stepped back, his eyes wide, as if he were watching a train wreck in slow motion. "You don't understand," he yelled over the wind, desperation flooding his voice. "You need to let this go." Lily trembled beside her, confusion painted across her face. "Evelyn?" The innocence in her voice was a sharp contrast to the chaos spiraling around them. "What's happening?" Each gust of wind seemed to pull Evelyn deeper into a whirlpool of uncertainty. She couldn't breathe. "I need answers," she cried, her heart pounding. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Among the wreckage, a small, red leather diary lay half open, its pages flapping like frantic wings. Without thinking, she lunged forward, hands shaking. As she bent to grasp it, time slowed. The thunder rumbled low. An ominous drumbeat accompanying her frantic heartbeat. When she opened it, a scent wafted up. Old paper mixed with something sweeter, like gardenias from her younger days. The words poured out, songs of betrayal, scars deeper than she could have ever imagined. But then she noticed a name that felt foreign yet familiar. Melanie. Evelyn's hands shot to her mouth, eyes wide. "Melanie?" She turned to Jason, bewildered. "Who is Melanie?" In that split second, the air around them thickened. Jason's face twisted, horror etching deep lines into his skin. "You can't find out that way," he shouted, his voice rising above the growing storm. "Don't open that. It was never meant for you." But it was too late. The words had already seeped into her mind, igniting a firestorm of memory. A child's laughter echoed in her thoughts, followed by whispers of a love she thought she'd lost. Then, just as she began to comprehend, the thunder cracked loudly above. The sky darkened, almost as if the heavens were wrestling with their secrets. Evelyn's heart pounded wildly as she clutched the diary. "Stop!" Lily yelled. "What are you hiding?" But before anyone could respond, and the ground trembled beneath them. Suddenly, the entire trunk burst open, and a bright, radiant light streamed out, engulfing them all in its glow. Evelyn squinted, shielding her eyes. She felt warmth wash over her, a warmth that throbbed, pulsed with emotion. Inside the light, figures began to emerge, shadows of people she hadn't seen in years, their familiar faces twisted in anguish. They looked like her family, but also like strangers. They whispered her name over and over. "Evelyn! Evelyn! Melanie!" Panic seized her. No, this can't be real. But it was. Just as she thought to run, Jason lunged forward, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You have to confront this. You need to know what they want." The scream lodged deep in Evelyn's throat. She was caught between the past and the revelations crashing into her like waves. Jason grasped her shoulders, grounding her. "They're your answers, Evelyn. Face them." As the light pulsed, swirling with forgotten memories, Evelyn's mind raced. Who was Melanie? How did they know her? The ground beneath her felt unsteady, teetering between reality and the impossibility of the moment. Thunder rumbled louder, shaking her heart. "I can't do this," she gasped. But even as she spoke, she realized she was already stepping towards them, pulled by an invisible thread. With Lily watching, wide-eyed, and Jason's grip steadying her, the surreal shadows grew closer. Evelyn felt her world shift, balances tilt. The truth was within reach. But what truth? In an explosion of brilliance, the winds howled and the shadows advanced. Secrets, pain, and love all twisted together like a cyclone of forgotten longing. And in that chaotic moment, Evelyn understood. The past had its own agenda, and it wouldn't be silenced. But as the light surged forward, a deep, haunting whisper echoed in her mind. Evelyn, you've been chosen. What did it mean? What choice lay ahead? Only time would unravel the answers. Evelyn felt the warmth of the light enveloping her, shadows whispering secrets she thought she'd buried. Her heart raced wildly in her chest, and as she stepped closer to the figures emerging from the glow, she could hear them calling her name, sweet and haunting, like faded echoes of a dream. Evelyn! Evelyn! The soft sound felt like a memory trying to resurface. She blinked against the brightness, trying to focus on the faces, but they remained shrouded in misty familiarity. Was that really her mother? Her grandmother? Their expressions flickered with sorrow and hope. Just as she moved to reach out, a deafening roar of thunder shook the ground beneath her. Then, a flash of lightning tore the air, splitting the moment in two. The brilliance of the light dimmed, and in the blink of an eye, the shape of a woman reformed from the glowing haze. "Melanie!" Evelyn gasped. But it wasn't just any ghostly figure. No, it was her. It was young, vibrant Melanie, her daughter, but not the one she remembered. No, this Melanie was different. Her eyes sparkled mischief, and an odd sense of recognition flickered between them. "Mom?" The word hung in the air, haunting and electric. Evelyn's heart clenched. "What are you doing here?" But before Melanie could answer, a wild wind surged through the clearing, the earth trembling beneath the force. Evelyn stumbled, locking eyes with Jason, whose face mirrored confusion and horror. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice strained. "This isn't how it's supposed to be. You can't!" But the moment was lost. Lightning crackled again, illuminating the trunk on the ground, and with that, a piercing scream erupted from somewhere in the distance. The scream transformed into frantic cries, then a collective gasp. A crowd had gathered, faces blurred from the light, shadows crowding around the edge of the darkness, like anxious spectators. "What's happening?" Lily shouted, backing away, fear wrinkling her young face. And then Evelyn heard it, the name resonating through the winds, the shout unmistakable. "Melanie, come back!" A woman, fierce and desperate, rushed into view. Her hair whipped around her like a cyclone, and her eyes were ablaze with a fury Evelyn hadn't seen since the night she'd lost her child. "What are you doing with my daughter?" Time froze. The woman lunged forward, and in that wild moment, Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her feet. An earthquake of emotions crashing through her heart. "Who are you?" Evelyn managed, but her voice shook. The woman's face twisted, revealing layers of anguish. "I'm her mother! You left her! You let me, us, down!" Evelyn shook her head, confusion flooding her thoughts. "No! No! You're wrong!" But memory began to unravel. The whispers from the attic, letters she had ignored, unspoken truths, creeping into her mind like shadows creeping across a garden. "Melanie?" The word fell from her lips like a prayer. Lily, trembling beside her, shifted closer, eyes darting between the two women. "You both can't be—" The woman's gaze softened as Evelyn stepped closer, a broken connection pulsing between them like a bridge of shared pain. "You've got to remember, you're not alone in this." Evelyn's breath hitched, her heart a storm of tangled thoughts. Everything she thought she knew was slipping away. What did you know? Flashes of the past collided. Laughter, warmth, loss, and Evelyn's heart raced with what felt like betrayal. But then her emotions twisted. Uncertainty, spiraling in dizzying circles. Who was this woman? With the trunk still glowing and the storm raging above them, Evelyn faced her greatest fear, a truth that could redefine everything. What do you mean? We're daughters! In that chilling moment, the stage was set. The players finally revealed. But the biggest question hung heavily in the air, echoing amidst the lightning flashes. Who had truly left home? And what could it mean for a life that had been cloaked in silence for so long? Evelyn's breath hitched, and she felt the world close in around her. What do you mean? We're daughters? Her heart raced. The shadows beckoned, whispering secrets. The woman's face was a tempest, flooded with emotions as intense as the darkened sky above. You must remember, Evelyn. All those years, the lies we told ourselves, they've hurt all of us. Evelyn's mind spiraled, untangling webs from the attic, the memories clawing at her. Why didn't anyone tell me? She shouted, her voice raw. Across from them, the storm raged, air thick with electric anticipation. Lily squeezed her hand, confusion etched on her young face. Evelyn? Her voice trembled. But before they could grasp her reality, a deafening clap of thunder shattered the moment, and a blinding light erupted from the trunk on the ground. Evelyn's heart raced. She shielded her eyes as an otherworldly glow consumed everything. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The light dimmed like a fading star. A figure stepped forward, blurring the lines between the living and the lost. "Stop!" Jason yelled, voice desperate. "This isn't right." But what he didn't see was the horror etched on Evelyn's face. She sensed something shifting, something profound stirring in the storm. "Mom, stop!" cried Melanie. But it was too late. With a jolt, the ground quaked beneath them. The trunk roared, and Evelyn staggered back, eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, it imploded, and with an explosion of dust and debris, everything, pictures, letters, dusty memories, whirled into the sky. Amidst the swirling chaos, Evelyn saw more than shadows. She saw faces, lost, anguished souls who were part of her past. They cried out like sirens caught in a tempest, voices blending into one. "You let her go! Why?" The woman closest to her, unmistakably older and familiar, locked eyes with Evelyn. "We thought you died. We thought we lost you both." "No," Evelyn gasped, horror gripping her. The connection hit her like a train. "You were looking for me? But how?" Before she could process, the woman's voice broke, her expression melting into pain. "You are not who you think you are. You never were." At that moment, the skies opened wide, and rain began to pour, cold and relentless. But it wasn't just rain. It was a deluge, a torrent replicating the storm of emotions swirling within her. "Your name, Evelyn. It's not your real name. You changed it when you left." The woman stepped closer, urgency in her every move. "You can't keep running from this." Evelyn stood trembling, disbelief worming through her chest. But in the blink of an eye, the truth snapped like a taut string. Lily, glancing between the chaos, whispered, "But you're my friend. You're Evelyn." "Who am I?" Evelyn cried, fists clenching like she was trying to hold on to sand slipping through her fingers. Jason, helplessly watching, mumbled, "Evelyn, listen." But suddenly, the ground trembled again. A figure lumbered forth from the back of the crowd, unmistakable. An old woman, frail but fierce, her gray hair wild and eyes ablaze. "I am your mother, your true mother." Evelyn froze, breath catching, heart pounding. The world felt like it was imploding, the questions multiplying like a swarm. No, it can't be. But a single word lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. "You left us." Evelyn's reality hung by a thread, unraveling with every accusation. "What did you do?" she whispered, horrified by the glimmer of memory, a life obscured. Ending with "and just then, everything went black." Evelyn's world felt like it was collapsing, the weight of identity pressing against her chest. The moment hung heavy, charged with unspoken truths, as she faced the woman claiming to be her mother. But the storm outside dimmed all thoughts and made reality sway like branches in unforgiving winds. "I did what I had to," the woman shouted. "Shield Evelyn from the chaos. Let her explain, Evelyn. Don't push her away." His plea felt like a tremor in the overwhelming storm. But suddenly, lightning ripped through the sky again, illuminating unfamiliar faces in the crowd forming behind the woman. They were eerie shadows, eyes wide with a purpose that felt far beyond just grief. Evelyn squinted, trying to piece together the puzzle scattered across her mind. The woman squared her shoulders, ready to dive deeper into the past. But at that moment, everything paused. The air thickened, tension clinging like a heavy blanket. A low rumble, not thunder, broke the silence, a sound like the growl of a coiled beast. And then, without warning, the trunk erupted once more. Fear swelled inside Evelyn as the energy pulsed violently. The trunk exploded outward, sending shards scattering like shrapnel. She gasped, shielding her eyes from the sudden chaos. But this time, something extraordinary happened. A large, golden key, the kind that seemed to shimmer with a life of its own, sprang from the cavernous darkness inside the trunk. It spun through the air like a comet, a glint of hope cutting through the bleakness. "I need that!" the woman shrieked, panic flooding her voice. "Don't let it fall." Evelyn's heart raced, torn between the need for answers and a foreboding sense that the key held. More than just an unlock mechanism, it was a portal into mysteries long buried. In a swift motion, Jason lunged forward, reaching for the key. But in that moment, the ground shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. The air crackled with energy. Evelyn stumbled, confusion pulsing. "Get back!" someone shouted from the crowd. But the urgency morphed into a terrifying scream as the golden key was suddenly swallowed by a bright light, vanishing without a trace. It wasn't just the key. It was like an unseen veil had been torn open, revealing something profound. Time warped, a piercing vision flooded Evelyn's psyche. Images of a life she never lived, glimpses of faces she never knew, but felt deeply connected to. "Mom, you need to come with me," Melanie cried, her voice twisting through the chaos, laced with desperation. "You'll never understand until you remember." Suddenly, the shadows that had lingered in the background surged forward, their faces angered and mournful. They weren't here just to witness. They were here to reclaim. Evelyn's breath caught. "What are you all doing?" And in one chilling moment, the woman turned, her face morphing into something unrecognizable. "I did what I had to. The truth could change everything." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Questions ignited everywhere as secrets teetered on the edge of revelation. Evelyn felt cold, fear creep along her spine as she grasped at her identity like an unraveling thread, willing to hold on to any piece left. But then, without warning, the skies split open, and rain poured down in torrents, drowning out cries and chaos. The gralla trembled furiously, shaking the roots of reality beneath them. And as the storm enveloped them, a chilling whisper slipped through the cacophony, laced with dread and desperation. Evelyn isn't just her name, it's a lie. Choose wisely, or lose everything. That resonated, louder than thunder, sharper than any scream. The weight of the world shifted as Evelyn's heart raced. What lay beyond the storm? What choices awaited her? All she knew was that this moment would change everything, and nothing would ever be the same again. Evelyn felt the weight of the storm around her, confusion swirling like the wind. As the shadows moved closer, she struggled to grasp the enormity of what was revealed. Was this woman really her mother? Could she have left a daughter behind without a second thought? The truth crashed into her like the relentless rain washing over the garden, erasing the lines between past and present. "Stop!" she gasped, hands shaking. "Stop saying these things!" But the faces around them blurred into panic. Jason, standing close, shouted, "Evelyn, you have to listen! This storm! Something's coming!" His eyes darted to the sky, anxiety tightening his features. Before she could respond, a fierce wind whipped through the clearing. The trunks of trees bent. Leaves rustled frantically. The crowd, frightened figures etched against the backdrop of light and dark, began to murmur, a chorus of rising fear echoing in the storm's wake. The woman's eyes burned bright with desperation. "You have no idea how dangerous this is. You have to remember the past. I can't let you walk away again." "Walk away from what?" Evelyn shouted, the rawness of her voice cutting through the chaos. But the feeling of dread was enveloping her again, like a thick fog, blurring her vision. And then it happened. A blinding flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating a figure at the edge of the crowd. A young girl no older than Lily, with wide eyes, staring straight at Evelyn. She was soaked, hair matted, but it was the familiar shape of her features that made Evelyn's heart stop. "Mom!" the girl screamed, voice piercing through the tempest of noise. "You need to help me!" Evelyn froze, disbelief clawing at her. Who are you?" The crowd fell silent. Tension thickening like molasses. Faces turned toward the stranger, confusion mingling with recognition. She looked just like Evelyn, just younger. "What do you want?" Jason demanded, stepping protectively in front of Evelyn. "Who are you to call her that?" But the girl kept her gaze fixed on Evelyn, tears streaming down her face. "They're trying to take me, Mom! You have to remember!" A deep tremor shook the ground, rattling Evelyn's bones. Jason and the woman yelled out, but she couldn't hear them over the rushing pulse in her ears. All she could see was the girl, her daughter. Evelyn's heart raced. Memories began to fracture, slivers breaking through the barrier she had built. "You left me!" the girl cried, collapsing to the ground, shoulders heaving with sobs. You promised you'd come back!" Evelyn's chest tightened, memories flooding back like rising waters. A promise, a little girl with curly hair, laughter lost in the echoes of time. Suddenly, more figures began to emerge around the girl, faces twisted in anguish, older men and women stepping forward from the shadows, calling her name. "Stacy, Stacy, come here." Her world flipped upside down. Stacy? The name lingered, familiar yet foreign, like a ghost haunting her. "What are you saying?" "Mom, we're in danger!" Stacy cried, reaching out. But before Evelyn could step toward her, the air erupted with screams. The tempest grew louder, swirling into a frenzy as if it were alive. Roaring winds and crackling energy filled the space. The shadows around began to shift and churn. "No!" the woman shouted. "You don't understand what she is!" All at once, darkness enveloped Evelyn's vision. swirling as sheer terror gripped her heart. Memories collided viciously, threatening to consume everything she knew. "What does that mean?" she gasped, eyes wide. And in that pivotal moment, the ground trembled, and then everything was gone. The storm, the crowd, and the shadows. Everything dissolved into a deafening silence. Evelyn stood alone in a white void. Confusion gripping her tightly. She could sense a presence, a flicker of light in the distance. "Find the truth, Evelyn," a voice echoed. Familiar, yet distant. "Only then can you save them." And as the light flickered, a question burned sharply in her mind. What truth had she forgotten? What would she have to confront to find her family? Find herself? Panic gripped her, and suddenly she realized she really didn't know who she was anymore. Evelyn stood there, alone in the void, fear gripping her heart. "Find the truth, Evelyn," the voice echoed, a lifeline in the darkness. But what truth? She felt goosebumps creep over her skin. Suddenly, a bright, blinding light erupted from nowhere, flooding her vision. As it faded, she found herself back in the garden, the storm still swirling overhead. The shadows were gone, but the air crackled with tension. "Mom?" Stacy's voice broke. Through, small and trembling, the girl's eyes were wide with hope, but the uncertainty marred her face. "Please don't forget me." Evelyn's throat tightened. She reached out, desperate to connect. But just then, a powerful gust of wind swept through, lifting leaves and debris everywhere. With it came a chilling whispering sound, a chorus laced with anguish. She must remember. Jason stumbled back, eyes darting everywhere. "Evelyn, we need to go." But even he looked bewildered, lost in a sea of confusion. Then, like a thunderclap, the woman, the one who claimed to be her mother, suddenly seized the moment. "Stacy isn't your daughter, Evelyn. You adopted her. You were never truly her mother." The words hung in the air like a knife, sharp and slicing. Evelyn's heart dropped to her stomach. "What? How can you say that?" But the woman pressed on, her voice rising above the howling wind. "You changed your name, your life, pretending to hide. You ran from this past, and in doing so, you lost everything that mattered." The crowd around them gasped, whispers growing louder, chins angled up in shock, faces blushing with judgment. "Is that true?" a voice in the back called out. "No, no, it can't be," Evelyn stammered, hands trembling. As she looked at the figure of Stacy, memories began to clash, warping her thoughts. What had she really known about her own life? Jason, caught in disbelief, shook his head. "Evelyn, focus. If she's right, don't listen to them," the woman yelled, desperation bleeding through her words. "She's hiding the truth, too." Evelyn felt her chest tighten with panic. "Hiding what? What do you mean?" With that, another violent blast of wind roared through, swirling debris around them. Evelyn nearly lost her footing. The earth trembled beneath each powerful gust. And then, without warning, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Lily, standing still, eyes wide with horror. "Evelyn, you need to remember, we're all in danger." "Danger?" Evelyn's voice cracked, confusion swirling in a tempest. "From what? Who are you, Lily?" But as Lily stepped closer, her face frozen in terror, another booming clap of thunder echoed above. Time seemed to slow. Evelyn's thoughts raced. "Mom," Stacy cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You loved me. Please don't push me away." Then, like a curtain being pulled back, the swirling winds revealed a hidden scene behind the chaos. A transparent window into the past. Evelyn caught glimpses of snapshots, laughter, pain, betrayal, and a girl with familiar curls. But then the images twisted, contorting until they grew dark and fell away like autumn leaves. And as the last of the images faded, the truth crashed in. Evelyn clutched, her chest, breath hitching. I never, she shook her head. Then she understood. The woman, her mother, all those years, had they meant anything? I never completed the adoption. Stacy is... I was never meant to be yours, Stacy whispered, reality crashing down. You can't run from it forever. Evelyn felt her heart break, pieces of her history crumbling into dust. She wasn't just losing her identity. Everything she thought she knew unraveled before her eyes. Stacy was never mine? You're telling me this is insanity. But it wasn't insanity. It was the truth, bare and painful. You were never the mother I remember. A voice from deep in the shadows roared, sending chills through her soul. Evelyn staggered back, the ground shaking beneath her as the realization rippled through the crowd. Who are you? The truth hovered in the air, cloaked in darkness and lies. Would she ever find her way back? Or had she lost everything, including herself? The thunder rumbled, and the storm swelled, ready to explode. What came next? Only the dark sky held that answer. Evelyn stood on the edge of the storm, her heart pounding, every word echoing like thunder. Stacy isn't your daughter. The truth clung to the air, heavy and suffocating. Shadows shifted, breathing doubt. Around her the crowd murmured, expressions flickering between horror and disbelief. No, it can't be. I raised her. I loved her, Evelyn cried, the words escaping like a desperate plea. But with every frantic breath, the reality clawed at her heart. Could everything she held dear be a lie? The woman who claimed to be her mother interjected. You ran from this. I thought you were dead. We all thought you were dead. Who are you? Evelyn's voice trembled, her chest tight. She wanted to run, to escape the chaos wrapping around her. But before she could question further, the wind howled, sending debris spiraling like angry whispers. Jason shouted, "Something is wrong! Everybody move!" But panic surged through the crowd, their eyes wide, hands clasped as if praying. Amid the chaos, Stacy, who was supposed to be her daughter, cried out, "Mom, hold on to me!" A flicker of recognition sparked in Evelyn. But before she could react, another surge of wind blasted through, the sky darkening even further. "Not now!" Jason shouted, eyes scanning the air for danger. And then it happened. A flash of light erupted from the ground, brighter than the sun, and more blinding than the storm. In that instant, the light morphed into a spiral, twirling upwards like a tornado made of sheer brilliance. Time felt suspended as the air crackled around them. And then, there it was. A figure emerged from the whirlwind, radiating a brilliance that made Evelyn shield her eyes. But as the light dimmed, the figure became clearer. It was a man. Familiar. Strikingly so. Tension rose like a tide. "Evelyn," he began, voice emanating warmth that cut through the cold. "I've missed you." The air turned bitter, and Evelyn's heart seized. It was Harold, the love she thought she had lost. But he wasn't an echo. He was here. What? How? The words spilled out, a mix of confusion and disbelief. Jason's face twisted in anger and betrayal. "You lied to us! You left her! You're the reason!" Evelyn stepped back, shock etching deeper lines on her face. "You can't be here." She shook her head. "You're gone." But as she said it, Harold began to fade, his features softening like a morning mist. "Find your truth, Evelyn. You must remember who you are. No, she yelled, reaching out, desperate to hold on. But in her grasp, he slipped away. The brilliance dimmed, pulling him back into the vortex, leaving behind an echo. Find your truth. The crowd erupted into wild gasps. What just happened? Someone shouted, eyes darting in all directions. Confusion erupted, shouting filling the air. Who is he? Then Stacy stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Mom, you have to understand. Harold is not who you think. He is. Evelyn's heart raced, guilt flooding her system. What do you mean? And in that electrifying moment, an explosion of truth shattered the air. Harold, he's your brother. Time froze. What? The world spun, and Evelyn felt her knees buckle beneath her. No, that can't be true. But the gravity of the words plunged deep, twisting everything she thought she knew. The shadows crept closer, the storm thundering above, and the crowd's whispers galvanized into a cacophony of shocked murmurs. Her brother? Harold? A lifetime of love twisted into a web of betrayal. Confusion gripped her soul. I was never meant to know? As uncertainty settled over the moment, the winds howled and the sky swirled dangerously. Relationships shattered in an instant. Who could she trust? What was real? Mom, Stacy called again, voice breaking through the confusion. But Evelyn could only stare, fear gripping her heart like an icy fist. Was it true? Where did that leave her? What did she even know? And as the storm raged, the only thing she was sure of was an urgent need to remember, to find a way back to herself in this storm of lies. But would she survive the truth when all along the biggest secret had been hidden in plain sight? Evelyn's heart raced, confusion morphing into clarity as the storm raged around her. The truth hung heavy in the air, a bitter pill she had to swallow. Harold is my brother? The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Yes, Stacy shouted, tears sparkling with a mix of fear and determination. You loved him. You were more than family. You were partners in a past that you tried to forget. The words, pounding and urgent, dove deep into Evelyn, corralling years of buried emotion. As understanding flooded her, Evelyn's gaze shifted from the woman claiming to be her mother to the shimmering tendrils of wind swirling dangerously above. I was looking for love, she whispered. I thought I had. Lost everything. But just then, realization shattered through the chaos. Stacy, I never wanted to leave you. The truth poured from her like the rain, raw and honest. You had to know. I thought you were gone. Suddenly, the tension in the air shifted. The storm shifted, calming for the briefest moment. Maybe we can start over, Evelyn offered, voice trembling. Can we find a way back together? Stacy's innocent face morphed into a hesitant smile. Can we? It's never too late. Across the clearing, the woman, who had claimed to be her mother, stepped closer. Evelyn, this family, it has a history of secrets, but it can also have a future. With that, the storm overhead began to diminish, the winds pulling away, almost caressing instead of whipping at them. Jason, finally free from the tension, exhaled, eyes darting with cautious hope. Evelyn, if you're ready to confront this, we can stand together. With breaths mingling between dread and anticipation, Evelyn turned to the faces gathered around them, each one a new reflection of her turbulent heart. More than the secrets, there was love beneath the pain, waiting for her to grasp it. As the last droplets of rain fell and the clouds began to part, illuminating fragments of sunlight, courage stirred within her. Together, she affirmed, voice steady. Let's face this, together. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Glances shared, hope glowing where despair once snuffed it out. Tears mingled with laughter, relief washing over them. Connections were being forged, old wounds starting to heal. Evelyn looked at Jason and saw a partner, not just a protector. She turned to Stacy and saw a chance at redemption, a daughter she could embrace now, not in the shadow of lies, but in the light of truth. "Can I have one more chance?" Evelyn asked the woman, her mother, "to know what it feels like to belong." With trembling hands, the woman nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Embrace this. Find your truth." And in that moment, the storm truly broke. Light poured through the clouds, wrapping around them, washing away fear and doubt. They stood in an embrace of illumination, knowing they could face the future, unraveled yet united. "Family doesn't end," she whispered, knowing this was just the beginning. Her heart surged, igniting with hope. It was true, they could start anew, and as the sun shone brighter, Evelyn vowed she would guide them through the stories they hadn't shared, weaving their tapestry from the ashes of the past. Now, more than ever, they needed to embrace this chance. But wait, before you leave this emotional journey, I need you to do something incredible. You have to subscribe right now to not miss any of the next exclusive stories we have coming up. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Let's make sure everyone else can experience this journey too. And flood that comment section with your thoughts and theories about this ending. I want to hear every single one of your takes. Don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how this all ends. Only true fans understand how vital it is to support the channel through these actions. Let's keep this amazing community alive.